The contents of that playbook was through co-creation and collaboration. So the playbook is kind of testament to walking the walk. And I think especially when we bring people together, we want to see something happen.
Welcome to Natural Collisions, brought to you by COAC Detroit. Conversations about the challenges and opportunities in the nonprofit sector, highlighting the voices in nonprofit work in Detroit and Southeast Michigan, and beyond. I'm your host, Charnay Sanders, Program Manager at COAC Detroit. In today's Natural Collisions conversation, we are introducing How We Collaborate, a Dovetail playbook on how organizations and nonprofits can have open and productive conversations. The How We Collaborate Playbook is a tangible tool designed for those who work for and alongside nonprofits to foster more equitable and effective collaborations. Created in partnership between Michigan Community Resources and COAC Detroit, the playbook is organized around 6 values and 5 calls to action that emerged from meaningful conversations during the 2021 Detroit Capacity Building Forum, How We Collaborate. It also draws upon ideas shared locally and nationally about advancing equity and collaboration in the nonprofit sector. Our guests today are both very familiar with the How We Collaborate playbook and will discuss its practical use so more nonprofits and allies can access this valuable resource. Our guests this month are...
My name is Heather Nugen. I'm the Director of Systems Transformation at Michigan Community Resources. And very briefly, what that means is I lead projects that help build equity in the nonprofit sector. So that's both internally at MCR and also externally through programs like Dovetail.
Shelly Danner.
My name is Shelly Danner. I am a co-founder and program director of Challenge Detroit. Challenge Detroit is a 1-year fellowship, and we cultivate community-minded leaders. And truly the core of our program is all about collaboration with other nonprofits and doing projects together in partnership. One of our star alumni here.
She's talking about me. I had the incredible opportunity to serve as a past 2019-2020 Challenge Detroit Fellow, and I'll be joining the conversation as well. Allow me to reintroduce myself.
My name is Charnay Sanders. I serve as the Program Manager at COAC Detroit. And at COAC, we are a resource hub that supports nonprofits, community organizations in Southeast Michigan to get connected to resources and to get connected to each other so they can better support their communities. And I'm the host of Natural Collisions.
In its simplest terms, Dovetail's How We Collaborate playbook is a guide designed to support organizations who work for and alongside nonprofits to collaborate more effectively. The playbook aims to inspire reflection, spark discussion, and prompt action regardless of your title or position in the nonprofit ecosystem. The playbook emphasizes notions around centering equity while collaborating, changing how we view the relationship between money, power, and value, and making inclusivity and equity the norm to create positive outcomes for all parties involved. However, before going any further, I wanted to start with a core question about collaboration.
So I guess as we're kind of getting the conversation started now at this point, I think we would love to just kind of start it off talking about collaboration, because we know collaboration specifically has been something that I feel is essential, especially in the nonprofit sector or between any organizations, individuals who are looking to do some deeper, more meaningful work together to deepen their impact, and especially when they align on missions. So it makes me instantly think about like Dovetail, especially with the collaboration playbook, and how Dovetail first, like just being a joint effort between Michigan Community Resources and COAC Detroit, and having this playbook designed to be a tangible tool that actually fosters healthy and effective collaboration among nonprofits and those who work alongside nonprofits, whether it's funders, consultants, or capacity builders, or other social change allies. But when I think about collaboration specifically, I also noticed there have been more collaborations that I've noticed or just seen in the network, especially since the pandemic or since 2020. People coming together to find ways to see how they can support one another to deepen the impact and really to also meet some of those gaps or fill those needs. So I'm curious, like between whoever would like to kind of start off, how prevalent, like, do you think collaboration is in the nonprofit sector, specifically in Detroit and Southeast Michigan? And how often do you even maybe find yourself or your organization collaborating?
I think Detroit, and throughout my career in the nonprofit sector, I've heard a lot of people talk about how Detroit is unique in terms of how collaborative it is. I think Detroit people are really interested in working together, and in a lot of ways, our context sort of necessitates working together. And that's like, sometimes that's cross-sector, sometimes it's just like cross-industry. We have really strong community orientation, but also a recognition that like most of the things that any given individual organization might work on requires the like sort of a multifaceted approach. So I think Detroit in particular is really great at collaboration. I do think that there's been more of a recognition of that among funders in recent years that has made collaboration something that's more directly promoted or encouraged, and sometimes better incentivized in terms of grant funding and things like that. But I think that as a foundational sort of orientation, like Detroit has been doing collaboration for a long time, and I think doing it very well.
Yeah, I appreciate what you are saying, Heather. And I think there's just so many different ways to collaborate in the nonprofit sector. And I think ways that I see that happening are, it's truly a menu, or a continuum, anything from sharing resources, which I think the Dovetail directory is such a great example of how can we connect organizations, service providers, leaders, community members together. Awareness building. There's a lot of collaborative events in Detroit. There are a lot of collaborative working groups and initiatives, citywide to maybe neighborhood focused. There's also a lot of projects that are done collaboratively, and that's where Challenge Detroit really raises their hand. We really focus our collaboration a lot on project-based work, and the list goes on. So, there's collaboration happening, I think, in micro ways as well as macro ways in our city and community.
I completely agree. And I love that you mentioned Challenge Detroit, Shelley. I'm wondering if we could actually start from there before talking about some of the Dovetail work. I feel like I personally know firsthand the wonderful experience of being a fellow and being involved in such an intentional and meaningful and so deeply rooted program and overall organization that really amplifies the incredible work of nonprofits and just fellows in general being able to do it in such a collaborative and meaningful way. But I would love to personally hear from you if you could just share what Challenge Detroit is to those listeners who may be unfamiliar. It really speaks to the collaborative work that you've been able to do in the city, like any successes or also any lessons learned.
Sure. So Challenge Detroit is a one-year fellowship, and we are really focused on the collaboration and project-based learning, which I'll talk about. But ultimately, who's in the fellowship are both Detroiters as well as people that might be from the region or the area or even out of state. But it's really about cultivating talent that has a respect, an appreciation, and understanding of our city and community and gets experience doing that work collaboratively alongside existing longtime nonprofits, residents, community members. So again, as we think about how do we want to develop talent, who do we want to see, as leaders in our community alongside those that have been doing the work and will continue to do the work. But as we think about, adding to that in the future, leaders, we want them to really gain practical, tactical skills around collaboration, around what does it mean to engage in the community and to lead in the community. And so There's so many benefits and reasons why we do collaboration, and I'll, kind of weave those in. But the way that we do collaboration is through the project-based work. And so we partner with nonprofits and we do intellectual strategic projects that are going to help move that nonprofit forward. And so it is very team-based. So we're partnering with the staff of a nonprofit with our cohort of fellows, which each year is around 25 to 30 individuals. And we really focus and center our work around people. And so the way that we collaborate is through co-creation. So really understanding the needs of the nonprofit. And so designing work and a defined project that is really going to be helpful and tangible to the nonprofit, and then including them throughout the collaboration. So making sure that we're doing it together and not in a silo, and that we are including members of their community and how they define community. So it could be their neighborhood. If they work with small business owners, it would be including those business owners and hearing their perspective and their input. If it is a youth serving organization, making sure that we're talking to maybe some of the alumni, the youth that went through their program, so that we're getting that diversity of perspective throughout the project collaboration. And we believe and have seen, so speaking to your point about success, that these projects and the implementation of them, which is done by the nonprofit because they really own that work and they're going to continue doing it for a long time, hopefully, that it is successful, and that the ideas and the deliverables and, whatever those work products are, helpful, usable, tangible. And again, overall, we've seen so many successes. We've partnered on these project collaborations with nearly 200 nonprofits across the city of Detroit over the past 12 years and counting as we continue on.
Love that, and congratulations on 12 years. That's a huge milestone. And I love that you uplifted the community engagement aspect of it as well.
It's so crucial to approach community work in a way that's not only intentional, but also deeply rooted in collaboration and respect for local wisdom and experience. And this brings us to Dovetail's How We Collaborate Playbook, a significant tool to support collaboration in the nonprofit sector. I asked Heather at Michigan Community Resources to share a bit about what Dovetail is all about and how Dovetail's How We Collaborate Playbook might be valuable for others working in the sector.
So I'll back up a little and talk about Michigan Community Resources, Dovetail, and those types of things. So Michigan Community Resources is a nonprofit resource organization. We help with technical assistance, capacity building for nonprofits in Southeast Michigan and beyond. We do legal services on behalf of new nonprofits across the state, but most of our programmatic work is in Southeast Michigan, Detroit area. And then for sort of the relationship with Dovetail, that came about because we sort of saw all these nonprofit network level needs, and knew that it wasn't work we could do by ourselves as an organization, but that we should be doing in partnership. And there are other, nonprofits like MCR that serve nonprofits as well. They do slightly different programming, those types of things. So those are the people we partner with the most to do that. But COACT really stepped up, I think, as a co-leader and a collaborator in this vision for sort of changing how nonprofits access services. And a lot of that came about by the changes in service delivery sort of mechanisms and needs brought about by the pandemic. It became we used to do all in-person programming, only in-person programming, and really we're not able to continue doing that. And so found ourselves in this position of we need to do something different. And I think COACT has been a great partner in visioning what that different is. And so Dovetail is us coming together to collaborate organizationally, programmatically, all these other things to sort of offer this new set of services based on these community needs. So that came out of engagement we did with the nonprofit clients we work with, as well as sort of ongoing co-development with attendees of the Detroit Capacity Building Forum, which was like a gathering of nonprofit folks. So all across the industry, you have philanthropy, people in grassroots organizations, community leaders, and then people, nonprofit staff. So that might be leadership. It might just be folks working, in the organization. And they sort of contributed like their best and brightest ideas about what is needed for, organizational partnerships to be really, really effective. And so that's what How We Collaborate, the playbook is. It is this sort of roadmap that we created together on like what you need to think about and also what, you need to do to have a really effective collaboration, because it's hard. I mean, we talk about how great it is, and that the outcomes are great. You can always get more done together than by yourself, both as an individual and as an organization. But I think there are some real challenges and barriers sometimes to collaboration. And I'm sure, Shelly, you even see that in your work. Like you have to, educate your partner about what you can bring to the table. And also there's a lot you got to negotiate on, like, okay, what are we really going to do together? And then sometimes you run into resource barriers, as two organizations trying to do something simultaneously. Like as much as grantors, I think, incentivize that, sometimes they also make it very challenging for both organizations to sort of equip themselves adequately to show up in the partnership.
Oh, I think that's super right and spot on, Heather. And that's what I also love about Dovetail, because when you were kind of just talking about it, like having these resources too, like, because Dovetail as an umbrella of initiative between Michigan Community Resources and COAC Detroit, I love that you spotlighted with the playbook, like it's a tangible tool where people can actually learn really some of the values of how you can collaborate in a more equitable way. Because if we want these thriving communities, that means having equitable communities and making sure that we're mindful of all of the different actors in this nonprofit ecosystem that you share that plays a role, because we can all do something different to make our communities better. So I love that also with the playbook, that it feels one, that is something that you can do on your own, and you can also bring to your friends, your colleagues, your organization. When you're kind of going through these reflection questions or learning more about these, I think there are 6 values of collaboration that were identified based off of the forum that happened in 2021. So I think it's really exciting to be able to just kind of, one, utilize some of the wisdom and knowledge that was captured and have this deliverable or a result of something that was really massive and bringing people together virtually, and being able to kind of say, what are some things that I can personally do or that my organization can do to start to really reimagine how we can collaborate more differently and what it looks like to really meet those unique and special needs of the nonprofits that you're serving. So this definitely resonates.
It was a result of the insightful conversations featuring over 70 Southeast Michigan changemakers from the 2021 Detroit Capacity Building Forum, How We Collaborate, that we established 6 values of collaboration to guide effective partnerships between organizations. The How We Collaborate playbook sums them up as: number 1, start with equity in the center. Number 2, name the elephant in the room, power. Number 3, change how we view the relationship between money, power, and value. Number 4, shift power to grassroots organizations and community leaders. Number 5, define what DEI means and foster it. And number 6, make inclusivity and equity the norm. These values aim to create a foundation for meaningful, impactful, and lasting collaborations that truly serves the needs of all stakeholders involved. I asked Shelly to weigh in. In what ways has the How We Collaborate playbook assisted her in her work?
From my perspective, I think the playbook is a really valuable tool because it is interactive and it's also concise. So in the nonprofit sector, we always are short on time, and it is nice to have something that is really thoughtfully laid out. And as you both noted, and I think is worth repeating, the contents of that playbook was through co-creation and collaboration. So the playbook is kind of testament to walking the walk. And I think especially when we bring people together, we want to see something happen. And so it's really exciting that there is this, as you both said, this tangible tool that is accessible to anyone because it is on the website and available. And then it has those prompts and those opportunities to, bring people together in conversation with ready to go prompts and discussion guides. And again, it's been crowdsourced. So a really valuable tool.
And I think it's also kind of neat too, because Shelly, I actually think you were at the virtual forum back in 2021 when we were all connecting around collaboration and how we do collaborate differently. So to be able to see or experience a program and then being able to have a deliverable that is informed by that, just like you said, that community engagement is key. But I'm also excited because I know with Dovetail, this is just one plethora of resources or one resource of a plethora of many others that people can find. So rather Shelly or Heather, if you want to share, if someone who is not familiar with Dovetail and they go on dovetaildetroit.org, what will they find or what could they utilize, whether they're a nonprofit or even a consultant or capacity builder looking to connect with nonprofits?
Yeah, Shelly had so much practice with this, but I'll jump in because she's not an ambassador anymore. So on the website, as you said, Sherney, dovetaildetroit.org, right now you can find the playbook. So that's under our Learn tab. And then you can also find the directory of vetted capacity building professionals. So this is a group of folks that, nonprofits need a lot of things. They often contract out for graphic design or strategic planning. They contract out for fund development, lots of different services, even website design, which, we did when we developed Dovetail. And so we have this directory of vetted folks. So people we know have worked with nonprofits in the past. We know it was a positive experience. And that was sort of resourced from other nonprofits. So if you're a nonprofit leader or somebody who needs to find somebody to work with, this is where you can go to find somebody will have that background in your business industry. And you can search by sector, or you can search by, services that they provide. You can search by zip code. There's lots of different things on there. And it's growing all the time. And then, so beyond the playbook and the directory, we also have a few other resources. We have a lot of information about the past forums. So you can sort of read through the resources that we generated there and get more of a history on what those were. And then we'll have another forum. We're working towards doing a final one in the next year or so. And then very shortly, we will have something called the Funding Navigator, which is a new tool. It's similarly interactive as the playbook, but a slightly different format. And it lets you sort of learn about fund development and map out a plan for a specific initiative that's tailored to where your organization is at in terms of capacity for building a funding sort of journey. So I'm really excited about that. It should go up anytime now. But yeah. Did I miss anything on the site?
Not that I can recall. I think you hit a spot on, Heather. And I'm curious, Shelly, when interacting and just engaging with the community, especially as an ambassador in the past, that you noticed if there was any specific tool or resource that you really personally liked, or that when sharing with others that they really gravitated toward?
Well, I think what I've observed is just how important awareness building is, because there are these incredible resources and we want to make sure that people know about it. And so I really applaud the work that Heather and MCR and you and COACT are doing. A podcast like this, I know there's been happy hours and networking events where Dovetail and the playbook and these other tools are being shared about. And then even just in conversations when nonprofits are getting together or you're having meetings related to your work, just starting to socialize these resources and these tools is really important, because we want people to know about them so they can utilize them. And I think one thing that's just so important to, mention is these are truly accessible. And that is something that is important in community work and in the nonprofit sector. having a low barrier to entry or access can really be game changing. And these tools are. And so making sure that, the word is getting out about them is so important.
The How We Collaborate Playbook is not only about working together, but truly rethinking how we approach partnering and community building. Collaboration isn't easy. It requires us to confront complex dynamics like power, equity, and even our own ways of communicating. I asked my guests to think about the 6 values of collaboration outlined in the playbook. What stood out? What did our guests point out as the most essential elements for successful collaboration, especially in the context where differences in working styles or perspectives might come into play?
I don't know if it's a named value, but I think one thing that the playbook will sort of help you confront and unpack in terms of approaching a collaboration is that it can be pretty scary. You have to be pretty vulnerable to really genuinely collaborate with folks. And that's both personally and professionally. You have to invest in the relationships with the folks that you're collaborating with, but also you have to be able to be institutionally vulnerable and say what your organization can do and what your organization needs, right? And that can be pretty challenging to do. And I think in the nonprofit sector in particular, there can be a lot of barriers to just being really open with organizations that are supposed to be competitors. And I think funders can often contribute to this idea of competition, which makes it really hard, even if you are aligned in all these other ways, you have the same values, you want to achieve the same outcomes even in the program, but things will get in the way. And so what it really takes, and I think what we really hope that the playbook would bring people to, and what I still find inspirational about it, is this opportunity to sort of unmask a little bit and find that vulnerability and be okay, this is what that takes. If we're really going to collaborate, we really have to be open and meet those difficulties head on and not let the other stuff hold us back. Because that, you're right, Charnay, working through it is how our relationships and collaboration get stronger, but it's hard to do. So I think that's my big takeaway.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of points. Earlier I referenced, micro and macro. And I think sometimes what can happen is we feel like we have to do something big and huge in order to collaborate. And while, yes, we do want to do these larger collaborations, more at the maybe systems level or something that would seem macro, remembering that the micro opportunities to collaborate are just as helpful. And I think a big part of this is practice and actually doing it, because some of the challenges, and I know, Heather, you mentioned, it can be vulnerable, that dynamic can exist. And the way, to, learn about it is to try it and to do it. And so even if we're starting small and we're finding ways to collaborate in those micro ways, and then seeing what it's like, learning from it, gaining some confidence, having more awareness around what it can take, that can help build into larger collaborations. And then also remembering that collaboration can happen inside an organization just as much as we want to be bringing organizations and creating partnerships, between many different partners and groups. So there's a lot of ways that we can be exploring collaboration. And I know the playbook really lifts up having this learning mindset, as well as this, very essential centering of inclusion and equity. And so that's something that I think is very important to lift up in this conversation in how we approach and how we do collaboration, is making sure that that is a really front and center way of doing collaboration. And again, the playbook really amplifies that. I think most of the values, if you look at those values, are really centering equity and all that comes with it.
Shelley, I'm sure you've seen examples of, I like that you brought up internal collaboration, because I'm sure in your work, you probably are fostering a lot of like cross team collaboration rather than just like cross organizational collaboration. I'm wondering if you have any examples you'd want to share.
Sure. And yes, that is definitely what's happening. And I think what I would say is just how important it is to build up the skill. And so when we think about, how we can make an impact, one of those ways that we strive to make an impact is by really supporting leadership growth in our community. And this tool of collaboration and having a growth mindset, being innovative, being culturally aware, and really putting effort into getting to know your community and building those relationships. These are all skill sets that we want to foster and cultivate internally within the cohort of the amazing individuals that are part of our fellowship program. And so that teamwork and that team collaboration, it's transferable, right? So what you're learning at a team level, is most likely going to also be helpful as you think about collaborating outside of your team and kind of, then working with other nonprofits or partners or community groups. We also really talk a lot about customization and really thinking about, who are you working with and what matters to them. So there could be some additional things to really keep in mind in terms of how you approach the collaboration, but some of those really foundational collaboration skills, whether you're trying and practicing within our program or, if you're part of a team at any organization, getting to do those within a team internally is valuable.
I love it. This also has me just thinking of the ways I'm hearing both of you talk about collaboration. It's just the way that my understanding of collaboration has changed. Because before kind of going into it, you probably think of, just collaborating with someone. While it can still be an enjoyable experience, at first it felt linear. And the more I'm hearing, it's just like, yes, there's going to be like ups and downs, but I don't even think that is a negative thing. It's just a part of like the growth thing, that kind of what you're mentioning, Shelley. So as I'm thinking of just collaboration and how it expands. And even sometimes when you have a project and you think, okay, if I just hit this goal, that maybe that's the end of the collaboration, but you recognize some things are just ever evolving, and maybe the goal can change, or even the work, or just ways when you're connecting with people to say like, hey, there's some good synergy here.
It's really exciting to hear about the continuation of the work with the How We Collaborate Playbook from the Detroit Capacity Building Forum series. The playbook was designed by the team at OVDO Media. Their involvement in transforming the content of the playbook into an interactive tool with colorful art and designs brought the playbook to life. This collaborative approach helped make the How We Collaborate Playbook an engaging and community-centered digital resource. So what's next? How will Dovetail's playbook inspire collaboration, not just within organizations, but also across the broader nonprofit ecosystem?
Because that's when I joined the team, and that was like one of the first things that I did, which is such a big thing to do in your first few weeks. Like, hey, come to this big deal forum and talk about and not like a small topic, right? Like, let's talk about how to just totally transform nonprofit investing. Like, what an entry point. But yes, that was 2022.
Wow. See, like literally, so it's like ongoing. The work is ongoing. The collaboration is ongoing. And even with the playbooks, yes, the 2022. And now working on that playbook. So it's like Dovetail, people know there's other opportunities to plug in. But as we're talking about collaboration and have resources on collaboration, just knowing that this is an ongoing collaboration that's ever evolving and growing in other opportunities. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of share that connection. But I guess as we're also starting to wrap up the conversation shortly, I'm curious, like, one, how people can, learn more about Dovetail. Like, Heather, if you want to just kind of give them the plug, or even if someone is kind of listening that may not be a nonprofit, whether they're a consultant that works with nonprofits, but how they can also probably get involved in like the directory or like any of the other resources. So if you just want to kind of share that, and then maybe we can get into any final thoughts regarding collaboration or Dovetail.
Yeah, so Dovetail, the website is www.dovetaildetroit.org. And whether it, I think consultants in particular can definitely use the playbook. They'll get the most out of listing themselves in the directory. And so to do that, you kind of go through the become a provider standpoint. You fill out an application. We do some reference checks. Just like look into sort of your history as a business. It is open to people who are new to consulting. So maybe they had a professional role, but have opened their own practice. There's not necessarily like, you don't have to be a legacy consultant or anything like that to join the directory. We're really open. I know when Shelley was an ambassador, that was a big question. And then we have people, with a lot of different types of experience, a lot of different types of services. So it's really just a matter of like, how interested are you in working with nonprofits, and how much experience do you have with that audience is what we're vetting for. And then for nonprofits who maybe they have some technical assistance dollars to spend, or they're looking to find somebody to do something for their business, the directory is a great place to start. Some industries and service areas are better covered than others, so you can always reach out to us if you need a recommendation. I think we still have some soft recommendations that didn't make it into the directory yet, so we can always make referrals. And then I just think that like when the funding navigator's on there, that'll be a huge area. We've heard for years how important it is for people to understand how to do fund development. And at Michigan Community Resources, we work a lot with sort of smaller nonprofit organizations, grassroots organizations that aren't quite fully incorporated yet. And that's a top issue, is like, how are we going to, pay for our community projects? How are we going to pay our staff? So I'm super excited that that'll come online. And then in the past, we've done some sort of ecosystem mapping work. So if you're a consultant trying to understand, where are the service areas or where are the gaps for nonprofits, or if you're even just a nonprofit professional trying to understand, like, why are there so many consultants doing blah, 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 you can go look at that map and kind of get a sense of where people are, doing business, where they aren't. If you're looking for opportunities for service areas, you might be able to find that there. And we have some other resources and things on the site.
Thanks, Heather. That was awesome. And so we'll say it.
We have a happy hour coming up. We don't have a date yet, but we are doing a fall happy hour. So keep your eyes peeled for an August or September happy hour. I'm trying really hard for August.
No, that would be wonderful, because then it's like you're able to enjoy the wonderful resources on the website, but also see people in person and make those connections.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Shelley, like whether it's like Dovetail or Challenge Detroit, that you also just want to uplift with the listeners?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to join both of you as someone who's a supporter of both of your organizations as well as the Dovetail resources. And I would just encourage anyone listening to share about Dovetail with a friend, with a coworker, with a partner in the work. Because again, these are tools that are meant to be used by our community and are very accessible. So just encourage people to check them out.
And tell somebody else.
Yes, spread the word. Thank you all so much. This was awesome. I really appreciate it. Oh my goodness.
Thank you to both of our guests. Heather is Director of Systems Transformation at Michigan Community Resources. Find out more at mi-community.org. And Shelley Danner is co-founder and program director at Challenge Detroit. Learn more at challengedetroit.org. This has been the Natural Collisions podcast from COAC Detroit. To learn more about Dovetail and sign up for our Dovetail newsletter, visit dovetaildetroit.org. You can also find a direct link to the How We Collaborate Playbook in the show notes. To learn more about our work, visit coactdetroit.org. Please subscribe to Natural Collisions on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back with more conversations soon. Thank you for listening.